So I had a problem with my car. It's a 1982 Toyota Tercel, and it wouldn't idle. It seemed to run okay, but when I let my foot off the accelerator, it would just die. I wasn't sure why. I thought maybe it was a fuel delivery problem. Of course, it's carbureted. The first thing is to get the air filter out of the way. This is a 1452cc engine. As you can see, the engine is mounted longitudinally, but it's front-wheel drive. I believe the Tercel was Toyota's first front-wheel drive car. Here I'm removing the spring hose clamp that holds the fuel hose on the carburetor. This car had a ton of vacuum lines on it running everywhere, and that carburetor is really complicated. I stripped out most of those vacuum lines, including some that were pretty much required to make that carburetor work properly. Oops. I have some motorcycle carburetors I'd like to put on it, but for now I gotta keep this one working. So I got that fuel hose off and turned on the electric fuel pump, which is located right there on the firewall, and as you can see, fuel is flowing. The problem is not in the fuel filter, which is located down in this area. So I put the fuel hose back on and attached it with the spring clamp. There's a metal line that goes from the fuel hose to the carburetor. Sometimes at the end here, in old vehicles, you'll find some kind of fuel filter. So I want to check and see if there's one there and if the fuel is getting to that point. And of course, I dropped one of the copper washers. Luckily, it's not too hard to find. I see there's no small filter at the carburetor, but I want to see that fuel is getting through the hardline to the carburetor. And it is. Just another quick check to make sure there's no small filter right at the carburetor. Well, it appears I'm getting fuel to the carburetor. So at this point, I'm thinking maybe there's a clogged jet in the idle circuit of the carburetor. So I wipe off the banjo bolt and reinstall it. Here I turn the fuel pump on to pressurize the system and look down the throat of the carburetor to see if I have any fuel leaking in there. Which seems unlikely because I seem to be experiencing a lean condition, not a flooding condition. I'm trying to see down the throat of the carburetor while I work the linkage to see if the accelerator pump is working. I don't see any gas squirting, so I would say the accelerator pump is not working. Sometimes the float in a carburetor will be stuck in the up position, closing off the fuel. Tapping on it sometimes will get it to drop. Alright, I'm going to try to start it and see if it will idle now. I'll make sure nothing is going to fall into some moving parts and plug off any vacuum leaks. Between the choke not working and the accelerator pump not working, she's hard to start. This is the usual starting procedure for this car. Once it starts and idles, I have to just leave it idle until it warms up enough to drive. Once it's warmed up, it drives just fine. I didn't actually find anything wrong with it that I didn't already know about. I ended up cranking the idle screw up until it would idle. It idles a little high now, but at least it stays running. Like I said, the carburetor is rather complicated, and I have plugged off a bunch of vacuum lines. I think this is just a situation I'm going to have to live with until I put the motorcycle carbs on.